2024 IMTEX Summer Academy. We are delighted to gather with all of you from all over the world online. And yes, this is our very first session. So on behalf of Kerstin Wartberg and all of the IMTEX faculty, I'm Charles Krigbaum, and I send you a very warm welcome. In our opening session today, we are going to explore the world of the publications of Kerstin Wartberg. And I should explain to all of you teachers that this opening session was really my idea. I went to Kerstin and I said, we need to have a way to let teachers know more about you and about your publications. And this is the vehicle that we came up to share with all of you. Kerstin Wartberg is a force in the world of violin pedagogy. She is so well known to, of course, Suzuki teachers through her close connection and years of work with Dr. Suzuki. But perhaps you also know her from YouTube. She's a YouTube star with her many videos and other social media. You might know her from conferences in Germany or as director of German Suzuki Institute. You might know her as a professional colleague, but in so many ways, she is always working to support teachers. And I hope that today's presentation lets you meet her work and helps you to understand where it all started and how it supports teachers now. I'm Charles Krigbaum. I'm an American Suzuki violin teacher and teacher trainer for the Suzuki Association of the Americas. And I always tell my colleagues when they want to know, how is it that you are so familiar with the work of Kerstin Wartberg? I say, well, Kerstin Wartberg was the very first German to study with Dr. Suzuki in Matsumoto. And Charles Krigbaum was the very first American to have the pleasure to study with Kerstin Wartberg. So what we present to all of you today represents, in the case of Kerstin, many, many decades of research and teaching and writing, and 20 years of helping me learn how to teach and being a mentor and colleague. So with all of that in mind, it's really wonderful for me to begin today's session and welcome all of you. In addition to Kerstin, we're also here with my colleague Linda Pyatt, who's supporting us today with technology and videos and PDFs. So I say a big thank you to Linda. And over the next 90 minutes, we're going to share with you as much as we can from the publications of Kerstin Wartberg, keeping in mind that there are over 40 printed products, over 40 books, ebooks, audio recordings, websites, videos. So we will only be able to share a small bit, but I know that it will make a lasting impression with all of you. The main language for the presentation today is English, but I want to say a special thank you and greetings to all of our Ukrainian colleagues. Some proceeds for the online Summer Academy go to support our Ukrainian colleagues in their efforts. And to them, I want to say that we stand with you always, not just in the summer, but we are with you in spirit always. Well, I think after such a welcome, it's time to begin our course. And teachers, I get the opportunity to interview Kerstin a little bit. I've prepared some questions. And we'll see what Kerstin would like to share with us. So the very first publication that I ever saw was in 2005. It's the step-by-step book, 1A and 1B. I was a brand new Suzuki teacher learning in the United States, and through Amazon, I discovered this amazing book, and it captured my imagination. It made me so deeply curious. Immediately, I responded to the quality and the information and how clear it was. And I knew that I wanted to know much, much more. These were the very early days of the internet, but I was still able to find a way to write Kerstin. And to my great surprise, she wrote me back. And that began a very long and deep connection that I am so very grateful for. Of course, teachers, one of the first questions I had for Kerstin, I'm going to ask her again now so that she can share the answer with all of you. I wanted to know, when I saw step by step 1A, how did these books come to be? I felt that they were exactly what I needed in my teaching and to help my students and parents. And I asked Kerstin, as I am now, how did they come to be?
Thank you for this question, dear Charles. So, for me, I can say everything started in Japan. I studied in Japan and with Dr. Suzuki, and that's where all started. And to give you an idea, I prepared some photos of this time 40 years ago when I studied in Matsumoto. And Matsumoto is the town where Dr. Suzuki lived and taught until or after the end of the war. And Linda, could you show us the first photo? So we will see whether, there it is, wonderful. And here you can see the classroom of Dr. Suzuki in his school, in the Talent Education Institute in Matsumoto. And here we were always have had our lessons, and really Suzuki he enjoyed always so much teaching and interacting with his students, and he was almost always in a very, very good mood. And we have had every day a group class with Dr. Suzuki and individual classes several times per week. And here you can see the classroom again, and you see the big portrait of Fritz Kreisler at the wall. And Suzuki spoke always about the Kreisler tone, and he admired him so much. And he often asked us, turn around and play for Kreisler. So he said always, I'm not your teacher, but Kreisler is your teacher. Listen to his sound, his wonderful sound. And in addition, we received also lessons on practical teaching aspects from other teachers. And here you see me standing on a foot chart. So this was the very beginning, how to teach the very beginning with Miss Mori. And Miss Mori was one of the most experienced teachers for children in Matsumoto. She has had fantastic students. And here you see me at the Monday concert. And Monday concert was a long-standing tradition. It took place every week and lasted at least 3 or 4 hours every Monday. And every student have had the opportunity to perform there. And between performances, Suzuki often came on stage and gave encouragements, but also sometimes quite strong criticisms. So we have had direct some reaction from Suzuki. And some students had to perform their concert pieces over and over again for several weeks or several months until Suzuki was satisfied with the result. So he said always, the Monday concert is a recital training. We train how to go through a recital and how to have the concentration and the nerves and so on. And each performance was recorded on audio or videotape. So this was 40 years ago. Suzuki was always so interested in technical devices that could support the lessons. And now, here, this was my graduation concert in November 1981. And there, I was, of course, very happy that I could do the graduation there. After this, or let's say during my study time, Suzuki told me many things about his own plans. He himself worked on creating practice instructions for his entire violin school together with practice tapes. And he wanted to use these materials to explain his teaching concept and demonstrated there many exercises through the recordings mainly. Here you can see the first book of his almost unknown work, How to Study Violin, which was published in 1953 and was only available in Japanese. Additionally, Suzuki published 12 audio cassettes entitled Practice with Me. Also, these cassettes were only in Japanese. Suzuki showed me all his materials and drafts during my study years in Japan, and he spoke openly about the dilemma he was in. On the one hand, he was determined to continue working on these exercise books and audio cassettes, and on the other hand, he was faced with this enormous task of further spreading and developing his method. For my part, I felt the need to produce well-founded materials with practice instructions because Dr. Suzuki asked me to set up a teacher training program right after my return to Germany. This was a very big challenge for me, and I asked Dr. Suzuki to support the project of creating teacher training materials in German, which he immediately agreed to do. Also, his wife, Waltraud, his German wife, was really enthusiastic about this idea. She was very supportive and asked me regularly about the progress of my books. Again and again, she provided me with materials I needed from Dr. Suzuki's treasure chest of drafts. Both of them wanted to see that the Suzuki method would develop in Germany, the country where Dr. Suzuki had studied, and the country where Mrs. Suzuki came from. So this is here one of the many letters I received from Waltraud, together with numerous photos. At this time, copy shop or something like this was not so common, so they made many photos and other drafts of Suzuki's teaching documents. And here, if you understand, or some are German here, they can see how nice she writes. And also she writes, when your book is ready, I want to have at least one, but perhaps much more, and so on. So she was always very sweet, but very energetic. Yes, and gradually the foundations were laid for a German edition based on the first volumes of the Suzuki Violin School, which was initially only intended for violin teacher training courses. And Linda, now you can, yes, thank you. In the following years, I regularly traveled to Dr. Suzuki to share my new ideas and drafts. And one day, Suzuki surprised me with the task of writing a manual with practice instructions for his violin school, including audio files for today's students and teachers. This was, in short, the birth of the step-by-step books.
Thank you so much, Kerstin, for sharing all of those photographs and stories with us. Certainly, these are things that I've known about you for a very long time, but it is very exciting to see you have the opportunity to share with a wider audience. And that is certainly what we're doing today. So when we look at step-by-step, teachers, perhaps what we're really seeing is the end result of so many efforts and years of study and communication in close connection with Dr. Suzuki. And I don't have a letter from Waltraud Suzuki, but I do have my signed copy of Step by Step from the very first time that I went to Germany to meet Kerstin in person. And what I'd like to share with you now is a short message from Dr. Suzuki that we see as the foreword to many of Kerstin's publications. It's a very special message to me. It resonates deep inside, and I just will read a short part to you now. How wondrous is the life force. One feels it everywhere. Through it, we can enjoy the beauty of nature. Tiny buds become magical flowers. Every morning, the birds begin to sing, and countless leaves, grasses, and flowers herald to us the great life force. And in just a very short quote, we can see that Dr. Suzuki's aims through music education are much greater than just teaching the violin or an instrument to children. He really wants us to be present to the powerful life force, which is the potential inside all of us to create beautiful things in harmony. And that is really important to me, that is the very beginning of Step by Step. But I'm not quite done with my questions for Kerstin about Step by Step. I have another that I'd like to ask her now. Of course, I know the answer to this question, but in the early days, I was very curious about the title, Step by Step. And I know that Dr. Suzuki chose that title, suggested that title to Kerstin, but I'd like to ask her so that she can share with all of us, why did Dr. Suzuki choose the title Step by Step for your very first publications?
Thank you again for this question, Charles. Yes, Dr. Suzuki proposed this title, and he wanted to make clear that his violin method, his violin school, and my exercise books have two completely different approaches. So his violin school is more or less a collection of violin pieces arranged by level or difficulty, and Step by Step is based on one of Dr. Suzuki's main principles, breaking down complex skills into small, manageable steps to build a solid foundation. As an example, I would like to take the first piece. You see it here, the table of content, as preparation for Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in Step by Step. There are 35 short songs, and each song prepares all necessary steps for Twinkle. This means the children, they have very small steps, and they are controlled and systematic, and they have the feeling that a sense of progress and a sense of achievement to learn 35 different steps or songs. And each song has a beautiful piano accompaniment, and all this helps, of course, the feeling of progress, and also for the parents it's a big help that they have these small steps to understand what to do, and so on. The parents, they have also countless practice tips, and also they have some notes how to learn to read music. And Linda, if you show now the next pages, yes, you see on the left side there are only the finger pattern, the finger numbers on the strings, and on the right side the real notes. And like this, the children and the parents get used that how notes look like, and the parents can help and control much easier this way. And there are, of course, still many other practice tips you can see, for example, on the next page, the bow division for the first songs. This means that the teacher can save a lot of teaching time, because here everything is already written very clearly, and he can spend the time on the really important teaching points such as posture, intonation, rhythm and sound. And of course the teacher can concentrate on the mood of the child. These are all possibilities to help the parents and also the teacher to save the lesson time for the really important points.
Thank you, Kerstin. Before we go, teachers, a little deeper into the content of Step by Step, I just want to share that as a new teacher, when I first began working with these materials, what was so incredible to me was to have available the 3-tempo approach that is characteristic, really, of Kerstin's publications through all levels, because having that standard for the students, not only to have audio recordings of the exercises and the preparations, but then to have something very concrete to work through, from slow tempo to medium tempo to a performance tempo suitable to a student at that level, is so valuable that I really cannot overstate the importance of such a contribution. It truly is a magnificent contribution. And it also gives us many more options. I feel particularly in recent years that it is a very good time to be a violin teacher, because we, of course, have these beautiful artist recordings for Suzuki Violin School Volume 1 through 3, created by Hilary Hahn, and in Volumes 4 through 6 by Hadelich. And these are very beautiful, artistic, high examples that the students can listen to and aspire to, and they do. But for me, the pedagogical recordings of Step by Step are so important for other reasons. In the work of developing these recordings, the violinist Rudolf Gahler, who of course is Kerstin Wartberg's husband and very famous European concert master and soloist with decades and decades of experience on the stage, and the wonderful composer, arranger, and pianist, David Andrews. Immense care has gone into developing these pedagogical recordings so that students are always hearing a very high example. Mr. Gaylor's playing is always resonant and full with the pitch absolutely on the center. And even though he is very, very high artist, these recordings are clear to the student's ear. They're closer to what we're going for in terms of bow strokes and sound and the main musical ideas of each piece. And they also are with us, Eric Gaylor and David Andrews, in all of the small steps and exercises along the way. So for me, I'm always using both. I could not teach the Suzuki Violin School Volume 1 without both. I need the step-by-step recordings and the recording of Hilary Hahn in order to create this world for the students and for the parents. So I just wanted to add that and share that before we look into step-by-step and see how so many of Kerstin's teaching points and teaching philosophies learned from Dr. Suzuki and developed over many years are interwoven in every page of step-by-step. For this purpose, I'm going to share just a few ideas, but first, let's take a look at music and movement. Kerstin encourages teachers to use music and movement with young children to experience the music in their body and as preparation for learning on their instrument. Let's look at an example and how it is related to step-by-step 1A. Next, let's look at a short film that reveals one of the main teaching points in step-by-step 1A, which is the preparation technique. In so many of the audio recordings in step-by-step, particularly those that are showing a technical preparation or a preparatory song, we will encounter two beats between the musical events. The first beat is for the left hand, and the second beat is for the right hand. We call this finger before bow, or left before right. Okay, tell me when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Great. Not too rough. I always love to watch that video because the young man in that video was my student, Oliver. At the time, he was 4 years old, and now he is 15 years old. So that's very fun to see that video of Oliver, and it makes me realize the passing of time. Yes, teachers, it has been almost 20 years since the publication of Step by Step. But Kerstin Wartberg is never resting. She is always working for teachers, always developing new ideas, and particularly during the time of the pandemic and so much online teaching, Kerstin was really busy further developing the ideas of Step by Step. And as a result, now there are several ebook versions of Step by Step, which are expanded, even more ideas for repetition, even more ideas for teaching the repertoire in very, very small steps. And a new idea has come forward that we call the spotlight exercises. What I'd like to share now are some examples of spotlight exercises that we might use together with Step by Step 1B. This video demonstrates in just a few short moments several concepts for working on the rhythm and the bow division of the first phrase of Go Tell Aunt Rhody. And that concept is a spotlight exercise on the IMTEX online media library. And in the publication, Let's Practice Together, you will find many examples of spotlight exercises for a great deal of repertoire. And teachers, as you watch the video, I just want you to know that if you had any trouble viewing the video, perhaps it was something happened a little glitchy, don't worry. In the video of this presentation, we will replace the videos that we're streaming with the actual video files so that everyone will be able to see all videos in very high quality resolution at a later time. All right, it's time now, I think, Kerstin, for another question. We are seeing already many of the results of Step by Step and what it looks like, which makes me want to ask you, what advice or comments or feedback did Dr. Suzuki give you during the time you were creating the step-by-step materials?
Yeah, I can say at first his advice was very, very general. He asked me just to write down the basic learning steps and some exercises for each piece. And he showed me also again his own book, How to Study Violin. And he said, look at this and we will see what and how you are doing this. And then he asked me to develop individual learning steps and make them smaller and much easier for the children, so that the time while they are practicing this is more enjoyable for the children, because they have the feeling, I learned already this and I made this already so good. Now I can go to the next exercise. And this works the best, Dr. Suzuki said, when the exercises are incorporated into a musical context. And this was one of the most important pieces of advice Suzuki gave me for the exercise books. The idea that everything is easier with music, and everything is easier also to learn, to understand, to repeat, and so on. And when I showed Dr. Suzuki the first few pages, he said, really good, but he always said, good, but this was his normal way to tell people, give some feedback. Good, but you should divide each learning step into much more smaller steps, smaller units. So you find many ideas for this if you go and watch the children lessons. So that was one of my also important points I heard from Dr. Suzuki, and I went almost daily, always when it was possible for me, to the children lessons and observed them very much. And so I got also many inspirations and saw how the children were happy about smaller steps. And always when I showed Suzuki my drafts, he was really very happy, and with most of them he agreed right away.
I think that we will be able to see exactly what Dr. Suzuki was asking of you as we move forward now to the second volume of Step by Step, where it is clear that Kerstin took the idea of learning in very small steps that Dr. Suzuki charged her with, and now we can see the results as we begin looking at the first items in Book 2. In Step by Step 2A, we begin with two important aims: learning to play with a whole bow, systematic whole bow training. And we begin to explore the concept of ringing notes. So we're going to meet Dr. Suzuki's tonalization exercise. Of course, it appears at the beginning of all of the Suzuki Violin School, Book 2 and on, and 3, 4, 5. But in Step by Step, we again take the exercise and break it down into very small steps with rests, with frog and tip exercises. On this page, we see an adaptation of Dr. Suzuki's famous tone chart. Perhaps you've seen the original in Dr. Suzuki's hand. I once asked Kerstin, why is it in Step by Step that instead of a tuna for the deep master tone, that you've changed it to a dolphin? And Kerstin said, well, Charles, only Japanese children are going to understand the relationship of a tuna. For children all over the world, they think of tuna like in a can. So we're going to have the dolphin be the master swimmer, truly the most intelligent animal with beauty and strength. So this is an example of a modern day adaptation. And then if we continue to look, we see the first piece in Suzuki Violin School, Chorus from Judas Maccabeus, presented in very, very small steps, with attention being given to bow division, breaking the piece down by phrase, exercises for resonance and developing a beautiful tone, with supporting recordings of each small step. As we see on the next page, there is, of course, those difficult measures where the students must remember the high third finger from book 1. And we have a preparation exercise for that, which Kerstin has created, and it has an audio recording. All of these small and clear steps make it very easy for me to show the students how we're moving and how we're learning. Yes, and on the next page, we can see the relationship between tonalization. Here we call it the bell song and chorus. And having materials like this for the parents and the students helps them to relax a little bit, to understand where they are in the journey, and to make the goals of progress more clear and more concrete. This theme of, as Kerstin shared with us in her story, of making small steps enjoyable and musical and well-defined are truly the iconic moments of the step-by-step publications. Next, we're going to see how technical preparations can be continued with music and movement, and preparing away from the instrument, even at the book 2 level. Practicing along with recordings is something that teachers who have learned this approach from Kerstin Wartberg, we really have this in common, that we understand the value of students practicing along with recordings. This is a good opportunity for me to just share that although I think the Hilary Hahn recording is very, very beautiful, I would never have my students play along with this recording. It is far too fast. And we all know that when students play too fast, too soon, that's when they get tight and that's when they get messy. However, I'm always very, very happy for my students to play along with Aryata. And we can see many ideas in this film, but let's also not forget the importance of appropriate tempos for children's first learning of the repertoire. Okay, I want to share something else at this level, which is part of Step by Step, is to present new technical material in the form of a song or a melody. We have an entire second repertoire as step-by-step teachers. Of course, we have the Suzuki Violin School as our aims, but through the publications of Kerstin Wartberg, I have learned an entire technical repertoire for teaching things such as vibrato and shifting and bow strokes. And I'm going to share with you an example now that truly is one of my students' favorite things to play. They love this so much. They think that it is a song. Well, it is in a way a song, but we will also recognize this as the preparation for the extended fourth finger and the unusual finger pattern that the students meet in Lully-Gavotte. When placed in a musical context, this exercise is enjoyable and disguises the repetition that's needed for students to learn. You can always put a hey at the end. My students love to say that. So it's a delight to share that with you. We're about to move forward in our journey through the publications of Kerstin Wartberg to Step by Step, Volume 3A and Volume 3B. And the story I'd like to share about this, it was a very, very exciting time for me in my teaching because at this point, I already was working and learning so much from Kerstin Wartberg, and my students had the opportunity to test many of this material before it was published. So at this time, I was learning so deeply from Kerstin, and my students at my school were able to test many of these exercises before publication. And what I learned at book 3 from Kerstin was so surprising because, you know, of course, I was thinking, oh, this will be wonderful. My students will have a nice accompaniment to play humoresque with. But no, it was so much more. Imagine my surprise as we were working on exercises for shifting, vibrato, early double stops. And, you know, I didn't really understand. I was such a new teacher. And I said, you know, this is really great, but what about the Volume 3 material? Kerstin says, oh, yes, that of course that is there, but we have to also understand that at this time, we are preparing students for the intermediate phase, and they will need lots of help with these important techniques, and we must continue in our way to make the exercises enjoyable and musical and careful so that the students can achieve the proper results. And we will see a little bit more of that in Step by Step Volume 3. But first, I have another question for Kerstin. I think it's really related to our conversation. I'd like to know how specific did Dr. Suzuki get when he was advising you regarding the details presented in your materials? I mean, this could be anything, such as the bow divisions in book 1, which of course were very surprising to me many years ago, or other specific topics, such as when to introduce different concepts or exercises, or when we should be preparing all of these new techniques.
Yes, Charles, again, thank you for this question. And I think for me, the most impressive point in this area was the bow division for twinkle. So this is really something which made me thinking also very much, and it happened exactly in this time when I was there. And Suzuki told us one morning, for many years I have been thinking, what is the best place? Where should the children play the twinkle variations? Where is it the easiest, and where do they get in a long run the best sound quality? And Suzuki then made an experiment, and he asked 2 large student groups, one in Tokyo and one in Osaka, to start, or teachers to start with the new students, one at the balance point and the other, like they always did, in the middle of the bow. And after many years, he observed always these groups, and then after many years he said, now I know, we start from this day on only twinkle at the balance point until the middle. And this was the Osaka group who was learning in this way. And over years, he observed the sound quality. And with conviction, he declared that this is so obvious for him that these children understand or have had a much better sound development. And this was a very significant evolution from his previous approach, because now the children can play from this time on twinkle only with the whole arm movement, and before they had to use the forearm, the wrist, and so this of course was for many children not easy, and also to transfer the weight. The hanging is much easier in the lower part than to put it at the higher part of the bow. And this was the reason Suzuki found out that these children who started at the balance point were much better in the sound and in the violin development. And this was one example that I could see from one day to the other. He came to us and he said, all teachers now in Japan have to start twinkle there. I'm 100% convinced that this is the better way. And perhaps you can understand now that teachers who were much earlier there, like this wonderful William Starr with the book, The Suzuki Violinist, he wrote everything very clearly, what he learned in the 1960 with Suzuki. And there he has had the completely different bow division at view at this time, but this was 21 years earlier. So you can see from this example that Suzuki himself kept always working on his method and refining it, and to try to always improve and find better ways. And sometimes people think, I learned from Suzuki, or I heard from someone who learned there, and this is the way. And it seems that sometimes details are in conflict, but in reality, they show only Suzuki's different stages of development. And that's something, I think this example is very, very clear for me, that Suzuki himself changed constantly and developed constantly his method.
Which is, of course, an inspiration for all of us modern day teachers to always learn and grow and to continue to develop. I'm going to continue sharing from the third volume of Step by Step. And when I have two things that I want to share from you. First, I would like to see the marionette dances. So this is actually teachers from Step by Step Volume 2, but nevertheless, it's good to share it with all of you. This is the Happy Squirrel, which is an example of a technical exercise that we might teach students in group classes or in private lessons. And when it's first learned, perhaps it could be something for resonance or playing with different voices. But here we see it again in the third volume, now with shifting. In fact, thanks to the coaching and the teaching of Kerstin Wartberg, I really was able to move shifting and playing positions much earlier in my students' development. If we could go to the next page and show the marionette dance. Well, here is some vibrato exercises. These are also ways away from the metronome in a musical context to study developing vibrato in book 3, and perhaps the next page also. And here are some examples of double stops, preparing double stops for use in the concertos of sights in volume 4 and the next page. So what I really want to share is a story about shifting. When I was first learning Unit 3, Book 3, we call it in the United States, over 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago, I learned from my wonderful American teacher trainers about the position etudes from Dr. Suzuki, and that they were important and that I should use them in my teaching. But I wasn't quite sure when or how I would use these, and they were very dry. I could not get my students to practice them carefully or as careful as I wanted, or in the tempo that I wanted, or with the care in the fingers that's necessary for this technique. And I was so excited when I received for the first time these marionette dances from Kerstin and David Andrews, and I knew that this was exactly what was missing in order to use this with my students. When it was just an exercise, they did not want to practice, or when they did, it was not with care. And as we'll see in this video, even the support from the piano, every sound there is to make a suggestion to the student about perhaps the feeling in the left hand or the right hand, or the timing that's needed for the shifts. Let's watch and see. I want to share one other element from Step by Step Volume 3B, which is, well, really in all of the volumes, you will encounter examples that are very practical and useful for teachers. Examples of multi-level or mixed-level ensembles. This is where you have a piece or an exercise with something for everyone. Something that more advanced students can play as they're learning a new technique or skill, and something that can also involve younger children or less experienced students, and they can all play together. Deep learning is happening, but it's also musical and can be made into a concert. So as students are completing the work of Book 3, they will encounter Paganini Motion by Kerstin Wartberg and a piano part by David Andrews. This short piece prepares many of the techniques from the 3 Sights concertos in Volume 4, but is so enjoyable and lively and fun for students to perform that they often don't even realize the deep work that they're doing. There are options to include less experienced children, and we can see many possibilities for multi-level group instruction in our short film. Those are wonderful memories of a great course we had teaching Book 4 in Germany some years ago. All right, so we can think about the first 3 volumes of the Suzuki Violin School sort of representing the beginning phase of violin pedagogy and instruction. And as we've seen from our time together, that Kerstin has developed the step-by-step materials as a big support and a lot of help for teachers, students, and parents. But at this beginner level, there are, of course, many other publications of Kerstin Wartberg that I'd like you to know about. Earlier, I said that teachers who use the step-by-step approach will develop for themselves an entire technical repertoire of music and experiences that we can give to students in a step-by-step fashion. Those are all here in Kerstin's My First and Second Technique book. There are, of course, some exercises that are also in step-by-step, but many additional exercises that there was no room for in step-by-step. But Kerstin gives them to us and shares them to us through these publications. And more recently, at this beginning level, Kerstin's work has been in developing note reading and music literacy with young children in a way that's really in alignment with the philosophy she learned from Dr. Suzuki so long ago. So I think next, I'd like to have Kerstin speak a little bit about her latest project in literacy and see what she'd like to share with us.
Thank you, dear Charles. Yes, the note reading school, this is my latest project. And I'm working in this time with this, for this project, very much with teachers from Thailand together. So the German Suzuki Association is very connected to the Thai teacher group, and they are having online teacher training with us. And so these teachers were the test teachers for the new note reading book, and hundreds of children, they have really many students there, tested these works. And the note reading book is, perhaps I tell you a little bit, divided into 22 chapters, and each chapter has rhythm and pitch exercises without instrument, but with piano accompaniment. And as a highlight, each chapter ends with an ensemble piece in which the children play then all what they have learned so far. So pitch, rhythms, but also bowing notations and musical symbols. This means there are always these three points to learn: the structure, pitch, rhythm, and ensemble pieces. And during this summer academy, on August 5th, we will do a live session with my Thai colleague Toffee, and Toffee will present with me together the entire concept of the note reading school. And so I want to invite you all, please come to the note reading school. And here you see a short video. The lecture is free of charge. You can also tell other persons if you like. And the book is also possible to download as ebook, and all the piano accompaniments in the online media library.
Ready, go. Ta 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 oh. Ta 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 oh. Ready, go. Ta 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 oh. Ta 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 oh. Ready, go. Ta 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 oh. Ta 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 oh. Ta 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 oh. Ta 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 oh. Ready, go. Ta 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 oh. Ta 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 oh. Ta 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 oh. Ta 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 oh.
There's one additional publication at the beginning level that I'd like to share with all of you teachers before we move a little ahead. For all pieces in Suzuki Violin School, Volume 1 and 2, Kerstin has made arrangements with two different voices. So it's a trio book. I'm telling you about my trio book and the recording that comes with it. This book can be used for a lot of ways. For one, it is excellent for listening. You will hear these pieces performed in trio with lovely harp introductions And teachers that have students know that we always need variety and options. Perhaps you need to play a piece in a park and there is no piano accompaniment available. Well, for any of the book 1 or 2 pieces, we can go to my trio book and we can have some reading experiences with our students, because the second and third voice of all of the pieces are more simple, with the third voice often using only open strings. So there are many options here for when we need to create a concert and mix it up a little bit. We don't always do things the same way. We can play Hunter's Chorus in unison on the stage, and we can play it in 3 different voices at the park. And it is a different experience and more fun in that fashion. All teachers who work with young students know that we always need a lot of options. So I wanted to make sure that you knew about what is available in my trio book. All right. As we move from the beginning stages to the intermediate stage of violin playing, the publications of Kerstin Wartberg stay with us, but there are some changes. Step by Step is now complete, and we move to recital training, published by Edition Peters. And you will notice that the recital training material is written for a somewhat different audience. In Step by Step, we often have pictures in large print and stories and things that are meant to capture the imagination and the attention of young children. But of course, now our students are getting a little older and the material is getting a little more sophisticated. And we will see that exactly as we begin to examine recital training. in each of the preparatory exercises we saw for book 4, we're not just seeing some way that our students can play these or make it easier. Certainly that is there, but we're also learning so many strategies for teaching students how to practice and how to break down small steps. Really, the example in each piece is quite profound, where you can take that in your teaching with your students. And Recital Training Volume 1, which is the support for Suzuki Violin School Volume 4. You will also encounter some wonderful fiddle pieces, some other short supplemental pieces, many technical exercises, and all of the preparations for the core literature that you saw in the film. As I move us ahead to Book 5, which is the realm of Recital Training Volume 2, I'm going to share a short story of something that I learned from Kerstin. No one can put on a concert like Kerstin Wartberg. I have seen it in a variety of places, California, all over Germany. And when Kerstin is working with a group of students, she's always going to bring creativity to the process. We're never going to just play it like it is in the Suzuki Violin School. We're either going to use tutti solo, or she'll create a new harmony for a short moment, or something special to really create an experience for the students. And so my example from Volume 5, Recital Training Volume 2, is both practical. We're going to see the Bach Gavotte, which opens Suzuki Violin School Volume 5, here with a new piano accompaniment, which, if you're interested in, of course, is available on the IMTEX online media library. This idea is not new. Of course, we saw Dr. Suzuki using a piano accompaniment to the Bach Bourrée that closes Volume 3. But in this short film, you will also see, in true Kerstin Wartberg style, some ideas for presenting a piece in concert with a new twist or two. Wonderful. I love that arrangement so much. And I love that particular performance a great deal. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, that the publications and the body of work by Kerstin Wartberg truly creates an entire technical repertoire for teachers to use with their students. And here at the intermediate level, it's no different. I'd like to introduce to you now Enjoying Violin Technique, which is an important work that can stay with students for really some years. My students are working with this material from the time they are in book 4, at least until around book 6, certainly. At the very latest, book 4 and book 5. And inside of this book, teachers, you will discover over 100 exercises. 75 of those have piano accompaniment, and the exercises are grouped according to topic. You will discover shifting exercises, the first learning of 3 octave scales based on the Carl Flesch scale system presented in very small steps. Some legendary historical exercises from Sevcek, Opus 9, The Shifting, presented in a musical fashion in the true style of Kerstin Wartberg. Exercises for vibrato, shifting, trills. Around the United States, North America and South America, you will often find me teaching technique classes at institutes and workshops and festivals. And teachers afterwards will always come up and say, where did you learn this? What is this thing you were doing? How did you have the children doing this and that? I say, it's easy. I learned from Kerstin Wartberg. This is from Enjoying Violin Technique. So teachers, I'd love to have Kerstin share a little bit more with us and about this very important work for the intermediate level.
Yes, I think Linda, it could also stay, but both is okay. I have selected a video for you where many exercises are played from Enjoying Violin Technique, and so you can see and hear after some minutes the direction of this book. And the wonderful violinist Florin Iliescu plays some exercises for us and also participants of IMTEX conferences. And only very short, I want to invite you all, if possible, if you can have time, to visit our course, which Florin Iliescu and myself, we are doing this is the end of the summer school, and this is a combined seminar, and we speak and teach about bow strokes. 7 key bow strokes are there the most important topics, and part 1 is a recorded video tutorial, and part 2 is a Zoom live session where we try to work more on more exercises than on the video tutorial. This is the basics, and then also how to teach them and how to practice them also for yourself. I think this will be a very, very lively and interesting seminar, and I really hope you have time to come. And I think we should watch now, and that you all see how wonderful Florin Iliescu can play.
Teachers, we're nearing the end of our presentation, and so I just want to share with you, as you might have seen at the very end of the Enjoying Violin Technique book, you know, some things never change. Kerstin Wartberg's commitment to supporting teachers, always with new ideas and very high standards for technical development and taking things in very small steps. That's always going to be the same. But you know what changes all the time is technology. For example, I have this book in hard copy, and that's how a lot of my students have it from Shar Music, as we saw at the end of the film. But I mean, if we go back farther, when I first started studying violin teaching, there were still tapes and CDs of these recordings. And that's also how my students first began working with step by step, is through CDs. But technology changes so fast. Hardly any families have CD players anymore. And so that leads me to introduce you to the online the media library, the IMTEX online media library. I want you to think of this as really the support central and where all updates are located for all of Kerstin's publications. So something might change how it is published or go in and out of different kinds of publications, but it will always be on the online media library because it's easy to update and to keep it fresh and current. And it's also a tremendous resource. If you're looking for a place to find so many of the things that we have discussed in this presentation, I can let you know it's all there. It's all on the online media library. And so I'd also like to extend a very special thank you to Linda Pyatt, who has been our technical support today for videos and PDFs. And I'd also like to have Linda perhaps share a video with us so that we can learn a little bit more about the online media library and hear some thoughts about that from Kerstin and from Linda.
Hello, dear teachers and dear parents. I would like to show you how you can use the online media library. It is really easy to navigate. First, go to Violin Teaching Material by Level, and then you will see all the different volumes here. Let me show you the content of volume Violin 2B as an example. Listening is always the first section. Here you will find either videos or audio files. The listening videos in volumes 2 and 3 are combined with beautiful nature and animal images. From volume 4 onward, you will mainly find the sheet music to read along. Let's take a quick look inside. Below you can listen to all main pieces of volume 2B, one piece after the other. Or here you can listen to the recordings of the trio book. It's always really nice to hear the well-known pieces in completely different sound colors and musical arrangements. Now I would like to show you a very special possibility for reviewing the pieces that a student has already learned. This table covers almost the entire repertoire of volumes 1 to 5. We can also use these small practice sections to prepare for home concerts when family or friends come to visit. The different sets offer countless combinations. Each block is provided with a precise time indication. Below you will find the piano accompaniments for each section. This makes it easy to plan and prepare a concert or a long repetition phase across the books. The practice chains are also a really good possibility for organizing the review. Here the student plays one piece after the other at a medium or performance tempo. There are shorter and longer practice chains. You can choose the right practice chain according to the child's concentration span. And here only the beginnings of the pieces are played. This means that the children play the first measures of the piece, and when the piano accompaniment stops, they must immediately start the next piece and adapt to the new tempo, bow strokes, and the different musical character. This way, children can review a whole book within a few minutes. Let's go back to the overview. Here you can find only the piano accompaniments for the main pieces. And here the complete accompaniments from Step by Step Volume 2B. Here are individual technical exercises, and here all piano accompaniments from the first and second technique books. It makes practicing much easier when you have everything in one place. There are also ensemble pieces in each volume, which the students really enjoy. At the end, you can find all the online material from the note reading school. Number 1 are the piano accompaniments for all rhythm and pitch exercises. Number 2 are the piano accompaniments for special duets as PDF and audio files. Number 3, video tutorials. Number 4, information about the print editions. And number 5, this is really brand new, the digital edition as PDF download. The complete 80-page note reading school can be downloaded here by all members of the Media Library. Dear teachers and dear parents, I hope that I could give you a good idea of how to use the Media Library. Of course, there really is a lot more to discover, but you already know the most important possibilities of how the Media Library can support your teaching and practicing at home. I wish you lots of success with the online Media Library.
Perhaps, Linda, you could share some thoughts about what it's like for you and your students who are using the online Media Library.
I would love to, but there is some terrible sounds outside at my house right now, and so I'm afraid you won't be able to hear what I have to say. But if you can hear me, I use the online Media Library and all the step-by-step materials extensively in my studio, and I love the way that it helps students practice with the highest quality and how much joy it brings to their practice, in addition to all of the information that the tracks provide, such as the pitch, the warm sound, and the wonderful pedagogical tempos. So those are my favorite parts about using these materials. And I don't know how I would teach without the materials that Kerstin has created. And I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, London. It sounded great. I couldn't hear a thing at your house. Well, teachers, thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you about all of these publications from Kerstin Wartberg. I hope you were able to learn a little bit more about her, someone who has made such a tremendous difference for so many of us teachers. And I just want to offer you, as we close, one thought. Maybe you see all of these ideas and it's a little overwhelming and you're not quite sure where to begin, or you're curious and you want to know more. All of those things were also true for me as well a long time ago. I had the luxury to learn these things in small steps over time as they were developed. And so it was a little bit easier for me to incorporate it so deeply into my teaching. But now there are so many resources available to you. I just want to encourage you to start, maybe with something small, a new exercise, or the concept of using a recording to help your student learn through small steps. We have so many options available to us from Kerstin Wartberg that I just say try and see for yourself. Perhaps like me, you will notice an immediate difference in the enjoyment and the learning and the quality that the students produce. And so as we conclude our opening session, I send again many thanks to all of you, and most importantly, many thank yous to Kerstin Wartberg for all of her creations and everything that she's done for us. I know she's not so comfortable being in the spotlight like this. I sort of made her do this, but this is the Online Summer Academy, and I think that we really should thank Kerstin for all that she does. So thank you so much, Kerstin. Thank you, teachers, for joining us today. And as always, I will give the last word to Kerstin Wartberg.
Yes, I'm really, when I hear you say thank you, I want to say thank you to you, Charles, and to you, Linda. You both helped me to make this step for this presentation. And first I said to Charles, oh no, I don't think that's so interesting for people. But Charles said yes. And so I want to say really thank you that you made such a wonderful presentation. And I also, I'm very grateful that I have had this possibility, the destiny that I could learn from Dr. Suzuki. And that's also something, it's a present for me, that I could have all these wonderful impressions and learning possibilities, and open my heart and my soul, and to find these ways now to support many teachers, children, and parents. And therefore I'm really thankful. And I want to say again at the end, Charles and Linda, thank you that you forced me to do this presentation. And I wish everyone all the best for your musical journey with the children.